80 million people are waking up to blizzard warnings this morning, and what meteorologists are tracking off the coast of North Carolina has emergency planners across the eastern seaboard scrambling. The National Weather Service has just issued its first blizzard warning for New York City in nearly 9 years. Wind gusts approaching 70 miles per hour are forecast to collide with snowfall rates of 1 to 3 inches per hour, creating total whiteout conditions across the most densely populated corridor in the United States. But here is what has forecasters using language they almost never use. This storm is not just a nor'easter. It is undergoing bombogenesis, a process where barometric pressure plunges so rapidly that the system achieves the explosive force of a Category 2 or 3 hurricane. The pressure at the center of this cyclone is expected to drop more than 24 millibars in just 24 hours. That rate of intensification is what separates a routine winter storm from something that rewrites the record books. And right now, 12 to 18 inches of snow are bearing down on New York City, with some models projecting more than 2 feet along the New Jersey shoreline. 2 governors have already declared states of emergency. Airlines have canceled thousands of flights. The National Guard has been activated, and the storm has not even arrived yet. February 22, 2026. A low-pressure system that spent the previous 48 hours crossing the southern United States begins to organize off the Carolina coast early Sunday morning. By noon, light snow is falling across Philadelphia and the outer boroughs of New York. Most residents barely notice. The early flakes are light, scattered, almost forgettable. But meteorologists are watching something far more alarming on their satellite imagery. The storm is intensifying at a rate that exceeds even the most aggressive computer model. By Sunday evening, the transformation is complete. The system has officially become a bomb cyclone, a term coined by Massachusetts Institute of Technology meteorologist Frederick Sanders and graduate student John Gyacum in their landmark 1980 paper published in the Monthly Weather Review. Sanders and Gyacum analyzed explosive cyclogenesis events across the North Atlantic and North Pacific from September 1976 through May 1979 and defined a bomb as an extratropical cyclone whose central pressure falls at a rate of at least 1 bergeron, a unit calculated by dividing the standard 24 millibar threshold at 60 degrees latitude by the sine ratio of the storm's actual latitude. At 40 degrees north, roughly the latitude of New York City, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration sets that threshold at approximately 18 millibars in 24 hours. This storm blows past that number. Bloomberg described the system as a potential superbomb cyclone, with central pressure expected to plunge into the lower 970s off the coast. The consequences arrive with terrifying speed. Snow rates surge to 2 and 3 inches per hour across the Interstate 95 corridor from Delaware to Massachusetts. Visibility drops below a quarter mile. Sustained winds exceed 35 miles per hour for more than 3 consecutive hours, the technical definition of a blizzard. Gusts reaching 50 to 60 miles per hour rake Long Island and coastal Connecticut. On Cape Cod and the islands of southeastern Massachusetts, gusts touch 70 miles per hour, approaching hurricane force. To understand why this particular storm carries such devastating potential, you have to understand what a nor'easter actually is and why the geography of the eastern seaboard turns these systems into meteorological engines of destruction. A nor'easter forms when the polar jet stream drives cold, dry Arctic air southward, and that frigid mass collides with warm, moisture-laden air rising from the Gulf of Mexico and the Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream is one of the most powerful ocean currents on Earth, carrying warm tropical water northward along the Atlantic coast at speeds of up to 4 miles per hour. It maintains sea surface temperatures near 70 degrees Fahrenheit, even in the dead of winter, just a few hundred miles off the coast of New Jersey. The temperature contrast between that warm ocean water and the freezing continental air above creates enormous energy transfer. Moisture evaporates off the ocean's surface in vast quantities, feeding the developing storm system with the raw fuel it needs to intensify. The jet stream simultaneously pulls air away from the top of the developing storm column, causing surface pressure to crater. As pressure falls, the storm begins to rotate counterclockwise, driving winds from the northeast directly into the coastline. That is the origin of the name. nor'easters blow from the northeast. When the subtropical and polar branches of the jet stream merge, creating upper-level winds exceeding 150 miles per hour, the result is the most powerful category of nor'easter. Not every nor'easter becomes a bomb cyclone. Approximately 40 bomb cyclones form across the northern hemisphere each year, but only a handful directly strike major population centers. February 2026 is one of those strikes. The eastern seaboard has endured catastrophic blizzards before. Each one reshaped how cities prepare, how governments respond, and how millions of people think about the raw power of winter weather. The Great Blizzard of 1888 remains the benchmark against which all northeast storms are measured. Beginning on March 11 of that year, the storm buried New York City under 21 inches of snow in Central Park, with parts of Brooklyn and Queens exceeding 30 inches, and upstate locations like Saratoga Springs recording an astonishing 58 inches. Wind gusts reached 85 miles per hour. Temperatures plunged to 6 degrees Fahrenheit on March 13, still the coldest reading ever recorded that late in the season for the city. Snowdrifts averaged 30 to 40 feet across lower Manhattan, turning streets into impassable canyons of compacted ice. The highest drift, measured in Gravesend, Brooklyn, reached 52 feet. Over 400 people perished across the Northeast, including approximately 200 in New York City alone. More than 200 ships were wrecked along the Atlantic coast. The New York Stock Exchange shut down for 2 full trading days. The catastrophe fundamentally changed urban infrastructure planning in America. It directly led to the decision to bury telegraph and electrical lines underground and ultimately to construct underground rapid transit systems. Boston opened the first subway in the United States in 1897. New York followed in 1904. The blizzard that paralyzed the greatest city in the Western Hemisphere became the reason that city built the transportation network it depends on today. More than a century later, the pattern keeps repeating with devastating consistency. The blizzard of 1996 dropped 20.2 inches on Central Park over 3 days in January, with Philadelphia recording 30.7 inches, its all-time record. That storm killed 154 people and caused between $3 and $4.6 billion in damage, earning a Category 5 extreme rating on the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Northeast Snowfall Impact Scale, one of only 3 storms in recorded history to receive that distinction. A decade later, the February 2006 blizzard shattered New York's single-storm snowfall record with 26.9 inches in Central Park, all of it falling in just 16 hours at rates of 3 to 4 inches per hour. All 3 New York City area airports closed simultaneously for the first time since September 11, 2001. Then came Winter Storm Jonas in January 2016. Central Park recorded 27.5 inches, reclaiming the all-time record. John F. Kennedy Airport measured 30.5 inches. Staten Island's Port Richmond hit 31.3. 11 governors declared states of emergency simultaneously. The storm killed 55 people and caused economic losses estimated at $2.5 to $3 billion. Over 10,100 flights were canceled across the country. What makes the February 2026 blizzard different from all of these predecessors is not just the storm itself. It is the condition of the region the storm is hitting. The Northeast has already endured one of the most punishing winters in modern memory, a season that defied pre-season forecasts calling for warmer than average conditions under La Niña. A sudden stratospheric warming event in early January displaced the polar vortex southward, fundamentally flipping the atmospheric pattern and locking frigid Arctic air over the eastern United States for weeks on end. New York City declared a code blue weather emergency on January 19th when temperatures dropped below freezing and refused to climb back. The city endured 13 consecutive days below 32 degrees Fahrenheit through early February, the longest such streak since 1963. Wind chill values plummeted to 21 degrees below zero on February 8th, the second lowest such reading since 1990. The Hudson River froze with heavy ice, forcing the suspension of New York City ferry service for weeks. The human toll of that cold has been severe. At least 19 people were found deceased outdoors in New York City during the cold snap, with an additional 7 hypothermia deaths confirmed inside private residences, bringing the total to at least 26 fatalities under investigation by the medical examiner's office. The city typically records 10 to 20 hypothermia deaths across an entire winter season. This year obliterated that figure in a matter of weeks. Winter Storm Fern struck on January 25, dumping 11.4 inches on Central Park. Temperatures never rose above freezing afterward. The snow compacted into sheets of ice that coated sidewalks and streets for weeks, turning routine walks into hazardous journeys and leaving the city's snow removal crews exhausted before the next blow arrived. Then came Winter Storm Jonas, a separate bomb cyclone that hammered the Carolinas from January 30th through February 1st. Charlotte Douglas International Airport recorded 11 inches, tying an 1880 record, while parts of western North Carolina saw 16 to 17 inches. North Carolina and Georgia both declared states of emergency. The hurricane hunters flew into that storm as well. Now, barely 3 weeks later, the February blizzard is arriving on top of ice that never melted, into a city that has already buried 26 of its residents, with infrastructure already strained by 4 significant storm events in just 8 weeks, beginning with the 4.3-inch after Christmas storm on December 26. The winter of 2025 to 2026 has become a relentless siege. Governor Kathy Hochul declared a state of emergency for 22 New York counties, activated 100 members of the National Guard with 25 vehicles for downstate deployment, and ordered a commercial vehicle ban starting at 4 in the afternoon, Sunday on Interstate 84 and all roadways south, including the Long Island Expressway and the Cross Bronx Expressway. The state positioned more than 2,000 plows, 5,800 utility workers, and 114,000 tons of salt. Hochul urged residents along the Long Island shore to evacuate ahead of expected storm surge. Across the Hudson River, New Jersey Governor Mickey Sherrill signed Executive Order No. 14, declaring a state of emergency across all 21 New Jersey counties effective noon Sunday. At a Saturday press conference, she pointed to expected accumulations exceeding 10 inches statewide and up to 24 inches in coastal communities with 55-mile-per-hour gusts. New Jersey Transit activated system-wide cross-honoring, allowing passengers to use tickets on any alternate rail, bus, or light rail line. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani mobilized the Department of Sanitation's massive snow-fighting fleet, the largest municipal operation of its kind in the nation. Over 2,000 plow-equipped trucks and roughly 700 salt spreaders deployed on rotating 12-hour shifts. The city pre-treated roads, highways, and bike lanes with liquid brine. Alternate side parking was suspended. The Emergency Warming Center network was activated. School closure decisions were pending. Every major airline issued travel waivers. American Airlines covered 17 Northeast airports. Delta, United, JetBlue, Southwest, and even international carriers followed. During the comparable Winter Storm Fern just 4 weeks earlier, 10,000 flights were canceled in a single day. Amtrak warned of service adjustments along the already disrupted Northeast Corridor, where the Portal North Bridge construction had been modifying schedules since February 15th. But the storm's reach extends well beyond snow and wind. Coastal flood warnings stretch from Delaware to Maine, adding a dangerous second dimension to an already historic event. Forecasters project storm surge of 2.5 to 3 feet during high tides, with peak water levels expected late Sunday night into early Monday morning. Moderate to major coastal flooding is forecast along the New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Delaware coasts. The most vulnerable neighborhoods include Jamaica Bay, where historical dredging and landfilling amplify storm tides to nearly a foot higher than elsewhere in New York Harbor, the Rockaway Peninsula, Staten Island's East Shore, Coney Island, Red Hook, and Lower Manhattan's waterfront. On the New Jersey shore, communities from Seabright to Cape May face the dual threat of 18 to 24 inches of snow and battering storm surge simultaneously. Flooding in these low-lying areas could begin before the heaviest snow even arrives, with high tides peaking late Sunday night. Sea level at Battery Park has risen approximately 1.1 feet since 1900, meaning every storm surge now begins from a higher baseline than any previous generation experienced. The December 1992 nor'easter produced the worst New Jersey shore flooding since the Ash Wednesday storm of 1962, with tides peaking at 10.4 feet at Perth Amboy and waves reaching 25 feet at shore. The March 2018 nor'easter generated Boston's third highest tide on record at 14.67 feet. The February 2026 storm threatens to join that destructive lineage. The science behind these intensifying storms reveals a troubling trajectory. A landmark 2025 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences analyzed atmospheric reanalysis data spanning from 1940 to the present and found that the strongest nor'easters are becoming measurably more powerful, both in maximum wind speeds and hourly precipitation rates. The physics driving this intensification are rooted in the Clausius-Clapeyron relation, a fundamental thermodynamic principle establishing that the atmosphere holds approximately 7% more water vapor for every 1 degree Celsius of warming. Global sea surface temperatures have risen roughly half a degree Celsius since the 1950s. During Winter Storm Fern in January, Gulf of Mexico sea surface temperatures reached 72 degrees Fahrenheit, up to 4 degrees above the 2003 to 2014 average. That extra moisture does not simply increase snowfall. The latent heat released when water vapor condenses into snow further intensifies the storm's circulation, creating a feedback loop that drives pressure even lower and winds even higher. Arctic amplification adds another layer of complexity. The Arctic is warming 2 to 4 times faster than the global average, reducing sea ice and exposing darker ocean surfaces that absorb more solar radiation. This weakens the temperature gradient between polar and mid-latitude regions, destabilizing the polar vortex and allowing Arctic air to plunge deeper south. When that displaced frigid air collides with moisture from increasingly warm oceans, the atmospheric conditions for extreme storms intensify beyond anything the historical record has documented. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's 6th Assessment Report projects with medium confidence that extratropical storms over North America will decrease in overall frequency, but increase in intensity. Fewer storms, but the ones that form will hit harder. Heavy precipitation associated with these systems is projected to increase with high confidence. The pattern emerging across the 2025 to 2026 winter season fits this projection with uncomfortable precision. The Northeast's Interstate 95 corridor represents roughly 20% of United States gross domestic product. Shutting it down for even one day carries staggering economic consequences. Historical costs of comparable blizzards range from $2.5 billion for Winter Storm Jonas in 2016 to $9 billion for the 1993 Storm of the Century, the costliest winter weather event in American history. A major blizzard shutting down the corridor typically costs between $500 million and $3 billion, with daily gross domestic product impact estimated at $2.3 to $6.8 billion for the affected region. New York City alone spends approximately $1.8 million per inch of snowfall on removal operations. An 18-inch storm would cost the city between $30 and $40 million in direct cleanup alone, not counting the lost economic output from closed businesses, grounded flights, shuttered Broadway theaters, and halted commuter rail service across the region. The Air Force's 53rd Weather Reconnaissance Squadron, the famed Hurricane Hunters based at Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi, departed to fly directly into the developing cyclone aboard a WC-130J Super Hercules aircraft. The crew flew along Track A-65 off the East Coast, deploying drop sondes from 30,000 feet. These small instrument packages parachute through the storm column, collecting pressure, temperature, humidity, and wind measurements every few seconds as they fall. That data transmits in real time to the National Centers for Environmental Prediction, where it feeds directly into the computer models protecting the millions of people in the storm's path. The 53rd conducts winter storm reconnaissance missions from November 1st through April 15th each year, typically flying 1 to 3 missions per major storm event, each lasting 6 to 11 hours. It is the only Department of Defense unit in the world that routinely penetrates both tropical hurricanes and extratropical winter cyclones. As Sunday evening descends across the Northeast, the streets of Manhattan are emptying, Sanitation trucks are fanning out from salt sheds across all 5 boroughs. The Long Island Expressway is closing to commercial traffic. Ferry service across the Hudson has been suspended for weeks because of ice that never broke up. Hospitals are calling in extra staff. Utility crews are staging at predetermined response points from Delaware to Maine. Power companies have positioned 7,100 workers statewide, with 1,600 additional personnel deployed specifically to New York City, the Mid-Hudson Valley, and Long Island. Somewhere off the Carolina coast, barometric pressure is still falling, the cyclone still deepening, the snow bands still tightening into the dense, blinding spirals that will reach New York by nightfall. The last blizzard warning issued for this city came in March of 2017. 9 years of relative quiet created a generation of residents who have never experienced true whiteout conditions in the 5 boroughs. That streak ends tonight. What arrives is not just a storm. It is the product of a winter that has already proven itself capable of claiming lives, paralyzing infrastructure, and testing the limits of emergency response across the largest metropolitan area in the Western Hemisphere. The atmosphere holds more moisture than it did a generation ago. The oceans are warmer, the Arctic is less stable, and the cold air that has gripped this region since January shows no sign of releasing its hold. 80 million people stand in the path of a cyclone whose physics would have been recognizable to the victims of 1888, but whose moisture content and intensification rate belong to a different era entirely. The blizzard bearing down on the Northeast tonight is the new arithmetic of winter in a changing climate, and the calculation is still in progress.